All right, folks, welcome back to the Ohio Dirt Track Podcast. Obviously, this is not Clint doing the intro. Clint is in New Orleans, and he made us say that he is not throwing beads at people. So you are listening to Jacob, and today I am joined by a special co-host.
This is Derek.
And you've heard Derek a few times on the podcast doing some recaps and even talking about the Kings Royal. So we appreciate Derek jumping on board tonight to join us on the podcast, helping us co-host while Clint is not throwing beads at people in New Orleans. So, Derek, since you are from Michigan, we decided that we could have a Michigan driver on for our interview today.
Yep, we brought into the studio Ryan Ruhl, who is the driver of the Smith Motorsports 71H. He also drives his home car, which is the Ryan Ruhl Racing number 16. And it was a pleasure having him on, that's for sure.
It was nice getting to branch out a little bit. You would have seen Ryan race earlier this year at Attica Raceway Park. He got a third place finish early on in the season. And I want to say he made another appearance early on in the season as well. But Ryan usually will run some races at Eldora. And as we talked about in the interview, he actually has a win at Eldora. So Ryan is definitely no stranger to running in Ohio and doing well.
As always, we are coming to you from the home of the Ohio Dirt Track Podcast in the St. Pete District Studios, downtown Mansfield, Ohio. St. Pete District Studios is a full-service recording studio that can meet any of your recording needs. Rob will get you in and get you taken care of. Rock and roll, gospel, jazz, opera, heavy metal, you name it, they'll record it. Even commercial or podcast needs. Rob has clearly made major improvements to the sound of the Ohio Dirt Track Podcast, and we want to share that with you as well. So for booking, email Rob at robinrecorder@gmail.com or find them on Facebook at St. Pete District Studios.
And with that, we will jump right into the interview. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy Ryan Ruhl. All right, we have Mr. Ryan Ruhl on the phone along with Derrick Bean. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
We definitely appreciate you taking time out of your Tuesday evening as we record this to be on the Ohio Dirt Track Podcast, the first driver from Michigan being on the Ohio Dirt Track Podcast. We're branching out a little bit. So, Ryan, how's your season gone so far?
It's gone pretty well. I feel like I think I've won 5 races. I feel like I got second place like 20 times and haven't crashed a lot.
That last part is definitely very important. It keeps the bosses happy, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, you obviously started off your season with a very solid third place finish at Attica. How did you feel that night went?
Honestly, kind of felt better than winning in Michigan in some instances, because the competition is so great down there that, to be any sort of competitive was awesome. And a lot of times the Michigan guys don't hold up so well down there. So it was great.
And I believe you said that was your first time even qualifying for the feature through your heat race at Attica, correct?
Yeah, I did say that I was pretty sure that was the first time I didn't have to run a B main at Attica.
So you started off with the third place at Attica, and then you won the sod race right after that. And then a few weeks later, you got second and fourth against the Lucas Oil ASCS National Tour. So you started off your season pretty strong, and then a few weeks later, you racked off 3 wins in a row. So your season started off pretty strong, and then you guys maybe struggled a little bit in the middle with some inconsistencies, with some engine failures and stuff, and then you're back rolling again. So how would you assess your season this year? How would you rate it?
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. I did have a bit of higher expectations after the way the year started off, and then it seemed like we kind of plateaued, and then there were some engine issues that put a damper on a lot of things, I felt like. But I feel like we're kind of rebounding a little bit.
So, Ryan, for those of us who don't know, probably like a lot of us, how did you get started in sprint car racing?
I was born in Coldwater, Michigan, which is kind of right down the road from Butler Motor Speedway, and they've always raced sprint cars as far as I've known. And my dad used to take me when I was little, and then I just kind of became sprint car obsessed. And then when I got older, I sort of saved up and raced go-karts for a little bit, and then bought a used sprint car at the Fremont swap meet and went racing the next season.
Can you, do you remember your first experience in a sprint car, like where it was, how did you do all that good stuff?
I'm pretty sure it was at Lima Land, because I got a 360 motor, and Lima was sort of the place to go for 360s at the start of the year, and it couldn't have been any more unimpressive. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I was never that mechanically inclined, so it didn't drive that great. I didn't know how to drive, and so I just sort of putted around.
Can you describe your first win in a sprint car, like where it was, how you felt getting out of the car?
Yeah, it was at Butler Motor Speedway. It was with a 360 motor against the 410s, and I passed my childhood idol Ken Mackey towards the end of the race, and I'd been close for several years to winning a race, but something always happened, so I thought I just might never win a sprint car feature. So it was a super huge relief, and yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was an awesome feeling.
Looking back, when you first stepped into a car at Lima Land, and you said you were a pretty big sprint car fan. You've driven, of course, probably about every track in Michigan. You've been to Ohio, Indiana, Canada, Florida. I think you went out to Pennsylvania. You've ran some pretty big races like the Kings Royal, Canadian Nationals, the Chili Bowl. Did you ever think that would be possible when you were first getting into sprints? Did you have goals to reach some of those races and tracks, or did it just kind of happen?
Oh, yeah, I definitely didn't have any of those goals. I remember being about 16 and sitting in the stands at Butler and thinking how cool it would be just to get push started in a sprint car. So, yeah, once I actually got to drive a sprint car at all, let alone race it, it was all just a added bonus after that.
And are there any events or tracks that you would say are on the top of your list for something that you want to do before you hang up the helmet?
Well, I'm hoping to race for another 60 years or so, but yeah, I would love to finagle a way to get out to Knoxville, be it even a weekly show, but if I could make it out to the 360 Nationals or even the 410 Nationals, that would be the coolest thing I could think of.
Knoxville seems like it'd be a pretty good track for you. You like the big fast tracks, and you can obviously move around all over there, so that'd probably fit your style pretty well.
Yeah, I would like to think so. I feel like the half-mile stuff has treated me all right ever since I've been racing, but it's kind of dried up around here, and I feel like the only time I get to go to a half-mile is Eldora, and that's only once or twice a year anymore.
Speaking of Eldora, we had a little chat off the air, but Derrick wanted to make sure we asked what your favorite track would be that you've gotten to race at.
Yes, I would say Eldora, because I remember playing the World of Outlaws 2002, and so it always made Eldora seem like it was such a big deal. And yeah, to actually get to race there was crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. And you actually have a win at Eldora, correct?
Yeah, yes. In 2015, I won the the 360 portion of the Sprintacular.
How cool was it, getting to stand in victory lane of such a history-filled and prestigious place like Eldora?
I almost can't even describe it. It was such a weird event too, because we were having an awesome year, and I'd won 9 features that year, and we had gone to Butler, I think, the week before, and I was just kind of assuming we were going to get our 10th win of the year, and something happened and we didn't win, and I knew we were going to Eldora next, and then I was kind of bummed because I knew I wasn't ever going to win at Eldora, so then I didn't think I was going to win 10 features that year. But it all came together. We had an awesome night, and I think we even had the 410 there to race with the All-Stars, and that kind of helped get fine-tuned to have more time on the track. And yeah, we won the race, and it was great.
You mentioned it before, but you started in like the 360 and you've gone 410, and you've changed, or you've gone in between them ever since. Are there any big challenges going between the 360 motor and the 410 motor?
There's definitely a difference. I would say in Michigan it's not as big of a contrast, but yeah, if you go 410 racing somewhere where there is a lot of 410 competition, it takes some getting used to, just because everyone does it a few times a week and they're so good at it, like Fremont or Attica. It takes some getting used to. But as far as driving the car, if they're set up close, you just have to get used to the speed a little bit and the acceleration.
So Chad Blond's a driver that some people in Ohio might know. He has a handful of All-Star wins, and he got out on the road for quite a few years there for a while. You and Chad have had quite the rivalry over the last couple of years. How does that feel to have someone like that, where it seems like every week you guys are going either 1, 2, or in the top 3, it seems like?
Yeah, if you told me when I was just a super fan back in the day that I would ever kind of be on the radar with Chad, I would call you crazy. So, yeah, I get annoyed getting second place all the time, but sometimes I have to remind myself that, he was such a big name growing up that it's cool to get to even race with him and be competitive.
Who would you say would be the toughest competition that you've gone up against, either like locally, regionally, or even on the national scale?
Oh, I'd have to say the Outlaws, hands down. They're all just so good at what they do, and their cars are always, fine-tuned, and their motors are bigger than anything we get to race against sort of ever. So, yeah, anytime they're close by, I like to go see how we stack up against them, but they are unreal.
And then earlier this year, you got to team up with Lane Racing, the team out of Michigan, but they typically run, Attica, Fremont, and down here in Ohio. But you got to team up with them for the All-Star race up at I-96, I believe. So can you tell us like how that kind of came about, and how was that experience for you running with a very competitive Ohio team?
Yeah, it was awesome. I was super grateful for the opportunity. I think it came about because Brett, the guy that kind of owns and started the team, he raced off and on a few years back, and he came to some sod races, and we talked every now and then. And then I would just see him or his wife Patty every now and then, and we were friendly and would chat every now and then. And they were trying to have a car at the All-Star race because their